So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
I talk first. I always talk first.
Good morning, Vietnam!
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
The numbers all go to 11.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition! I got a bad feeling about this.
1.21 gigawatts.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie! You can't handle the truth!
To be or not to be? Not to be.
And we're back with podcast number 5. This week we discuss the TV shows that we are most interested to watch this year. We have Anir, Mrigank and Abhishek joining in.
What's up? Good, it's good. And how's everyone else doing?
Doing good.
Oh, good. It's cold out here, but still in good spirits.
Yes. Managing
That
our
will happen
spirits.
when there's a lot of spirit going inside you.
Hopefully
Keeping
later
up with the
after
spirit of the
this.
show.
Yeah, after this call, definitely a lot of spirits. So, Spike Lee's first feature-length movie is being converted into a 10-episode mini-series by him. It's called She's Got a Habit. It seems away from like what Spike Lee is generally doing now. It's not political at all from what I could surmise. But he might just give it that twist because now he's like uber political with his views. He always was, but this first movie didn't seem like one. So with all the feminism agendas that are coming in and are in the news lately, I think he might just put in a modern twist on it. So next we have one show that I'm really excited for. It's by Genji Cohen, the same person who has created Orange is the New Black and Weeds. It's called G.L.O.W, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, and it's set in the 1980s. It will have 10 episodes and it stars Alison Brie and Mark Maron. Anir, heard about this?
I have not really heard about it, but I like Alison Brie a lot, and I think she has got good comedic timing. I don't like Mark Maron so much. I think it just reminds me of Woody Allen, and Woody Allen is one of those guys I just can't stand a sight of him. So I'm okay. I mean I know what Mrigank will agree with me on this. It's just too neurotic for me. I'm talking about Woody Allen, but I can see the same sort of traits in Mark Maron, and so it doesn't work for me.
Since it's about pro wrestling, you need that sort of
Right.
character to work. So Mrigank,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I had not really heard about it until I just sort of looked it up like today. It does seem like a very interesting premise, to be honest. It's supposed to be a comedy drama, and then again, like, this guy makes some really strong female-centric roles, So, I mean, it should definitely be worth a watch. So let's see how it turns out.
Abhishek.
Yeah, I'm a huge wrestling fan, and just not WWE. I watch a lot of other promotions as well, and I'm a huge fan of the 80s wrestling. When you had people like you had promotions like AWA, NWA, and obviously WWF as it was known back then. What's interesting is back then it was territorial. That every territory had most of the territories had some big names. Like you had the Memphis scene, you had the Midwest scene, you had AWA, like I mentioned, you had NWA, and you had. So what happened was G.W.O.W, that is Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. They were the first people to start off this episodic kind of wrestling, like what we are so used to watching in WWE and TNA and all of that. They were the first people to do it, and Vince McMahon he took that idea and made it into his own, and that is how these guys were actually the originators of this idea that wrestling is, should have storylines, etc., etc. So that is very interesting. That is something which I'm really interested to watch.
If Orange is the New Black is an indicator, this should be an off-the-charts success as well. So HBO every year they come up with a mini, and it's sometimes most of them are really depressing, and this looks right up that alley. It's called Big Little Liars. It will be released on February 19th. It is also a mini series. Most probably it will have 10 episodes like every HBO mini series, and it's by the director of Dallas Buyers Club. It stars Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, Shailene Woodley, Laura Dern, Alexander Skarsgård, Adam Scott, and Zoe Kravitz. It looks like a very serious watch. It doesn't have a lot of comedy in it, and seemed like sort of an American Beauty type of going on. Next up, we have American Gods, an adaptation of Neil Gaiman's wonderful novel. It's being adapted by Brian Fuller and Michael Green. Brian Fuller, of course, we know him from Hannibal and Pushing Daisies, and he does some wonderful gothic stuff. Abhishek, you've read the book, right?
Yes, I have read the book, and this was, in fact, my first Neil Gaiman novel that I've read. I read it like a few years back, and it's one of my favorite books. I'm someone who's really into the Greek and the Norse mythology, and it's something. It actually tries to capture what happens when old people from old who have an old set of beliefs try to clash in with people who have some sort of a modern clash, and how to find a balance between the both. The series will focus on Shadow Moon. If you read the book, then you'll be familiar with the plot. It's this guy called Shadow Moon who has just come out of prison, and he goes to his wife's funeral, who obviously dies, and then he meets this very mysterious man called Mr. Wednesday. Now, if you're familiar with your Norse mythology, you know exactly what that means. But then again, it'll take away from that and how old gods will clash with the new gods, and that is the new gods being TV and social media and all of that. So that is something which I'm really excited to watch. And it's obviously stars Ian McShane, Emily Browning, Jonathan Tucker, Crispin Glover, Peter Stormare as Cernobog, which is something I really would want to watch. Peter Stormare is one of my favorite actors. He is just amazing in every role that he portrays. So that is something I'm really looking forward to watch. And Michael Green is also attached to a lot of big films which are coming out this year.
So Mrigank?
So, American Gods is something which is like really close to my heart. I mean, as Abhishek was talking about it. So, it really was my introduction to Neil Gaiman and his wonderful sense of writing. And the funniest bit is, I came across this comic where, not comic, but the book, when I was like sort of hanging out at a private sort of a library. And I mean, it's one of my fondest memories, because I used to go to this library and I used to pay $10 and just pick up like a random book. And this library was run by this one old guy. I mean, it was like a shop, where he used to sell books, second-hand books as well, but he used to rent out stuff to kids as well. And I remember, like, I was searching for some new Stephen King, because, I mean, that was a time when I used to really, read up, like, whatever Stephen King I could lay my hands on. And I'm talking maybe when I'm class 9th or 10th. And I couldn't find anything interesting. And then I see this book, and I am a big judger of books by the cover arts, And I see this book, and the first thing that hits my mind is this, like, an amazing, cover. It's got this lightning hitting the road, pretty much like those Jerry Bruckheimer movies, the introduction scenes. And I was like, okay, you know what, I gotta read this. Let's try it out. It sounds interesting. And I go home, I read it, and to be honest, I mean, I was drawn into the world. And I still, I mean, I'm sure the first read, I was just like, interested into the characters and the whole story as it is, but I was never able to grasp, what all, deeper thoughts were in the book. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you read any Neil Gaiman stuff ever since then, I mean, one thing that is always apparent to me is how beautifully he conveys, elaborate, maybe even metaphysical stuff into normal words. That's been his beauty all along. And I mean, when I saw the trailer, I sort of felt fulfilled. I mean, I was always apprehensive because I would really like this to be good. But I know, like, Brian Fuller did an amazing work with, Hannibal, and I was really sad that people had to let that show go. And I'm just hoping for the best, to be honest, for the show. I mean, I'm going to watch the hell out of it for sure. And I'm just hoping that it's as good.
Anir,
yeah, sorry.
Comics as well. So there's this comic called Wicked Plus Divine, and I haven't read American Gods. And by what I like surmise from the synopsis that Abhishek said, it reminds me a lot of Wicked Plus Divine, about old gods and new gods clashing. Have you read that? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Wicked and Divine is not exactly like American Gods. Wicked and Divine is basically gods exist and they are sent to Earth for a particular number of years, and they have to achieve what they achieve in those amount of years. Here, the entire premise is that gods and your entire belief in your mythological creatures and whatever you believe in exists because you believe it. You give them the power. So the clash happens when people start believing in a new god and old gods start losing their power. That is the clash. But in Wicked and Divine, it's completely different. Yes, both of them deal with gods and mythology and all of that. But I don't think they're very similar.
My introduction to Neil Gaiman and American Gods is through Mrigank. Not surprisingly actually. Because this guy, he just hands me this book and he says, you have to read this book. You have to. And my mind was blown because I finished the book in one sitting. I have never had my mind blown in the way that Neil Gaiman has with American Gods. This guy is the supreme being when it comes to just spinning a yarn out of mythology. It's Neil Gaiman. And this is a perfect book for you. You should definitely read it because it's just so captivating. I mean, the characters are so well etched out that it seemed to me like we were discussing at Mrigank and me that this is one book that should definitely be adapted onto the big screen. This book is amazing, and I think that the smaller screen will do more justice to it because there's just too much mythology in just the book itself for it to be captured in maybe 2 hours. So it's perfect that it's been adapted to the smaller screen. So I'm really excited for it. The trailer looks amazing. I'm sure that this is something I'm going to binge on.
If it's a huge success, then I think Sandman should also get a similar TV adaptation because it does not deserve to be on the big screen in which it will be condensed down like 75 plus odd issues plus all those minis. You can't adapt all that.
Yeah, but it's got what the hit records attached to it, which is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's.
I'm pretty glad that it got shelved. I think it deserved the treatment in HBO or Star, the Cinemax, one of these channels.
Seriously.
Next we have Twin Peaks. Honestly speaking, I'm not a very big fan of David Lynch. I could not finish the first season of Twin Peaks. I know it's supposed to be a hallowed show, but for me it was too slow. I do watch like dramas, I do watch slow burning murder mysteries, but this like took the cake. First of all, I know you're not supposed to make sense of what David Lynch does, and you also, if you are expecting a payoff, it doesn't pay off. But this was like to an extreme. I couldn't digest the first 4 episodes, and that was it for me. So, Anir, did you finish Twin Peaks?
Yes, yes. It's one of the shows like people when they talk about shows that did not end well, they talk about Lost.
Right.
For me, it is not Lost. It is Twin Peaks for me. Twin Peaks just went into this strange trajectory which it should not have gone to. It started out brilliantly. It did. The pilot episode was something that's very captivating. I mean, the characters, it just builds very slowly, but then it's very captivating. But as the show progresses, it becomes very apparent that the writers of the show are actually, writing the script just hours before they are shooting it. It seemed like that. And it just goes so haywire. I mean, they're introducing supernatural elements into it and, psychic elements into it, which didn't need to be there. I mean, it could have been really awesome. They made a movie out of it, which was unnecessary again, just to try to round up everything. But I think it just doesn't need to be remade. I watched the first season complete and second season mainly because I had a crush on Sherilyn Fenn, and she looks old as fuck now. But yeah.
That's alright, man.
Ruined.
We all
Yeah,
got a.
childhood ruined, man.
I have a very different sort of a thinking when it comes to Twin Peaks. I mean, I'm not a big fan, to be honest. But again, as Anirban knows very well, like, I mean, I sometimes I get drawn into strange shit, and sometimes it's all about, the look, the feel, and maybe the atmosphere that a movie or maybe in this case a TV show creates. Like, I really like Silent Hill, the movie, which I don't know how many there have been, but pretty much like the latest one, whichever came out maybe sometime in 2010 or 12, because it really drew inspiration from the game itself, and the atmosphere was surreal, and it was really good. So Twin Peaks, I started watching it after I ended up playing this game. I don't know if you've heard of it. So it's called Alan Wake. Now Alan Wake deals with a very similar sort of a premise. It has these supernatural elements and all, but then again the game had this beautiful setting, and when I'm playing the game, I'm discovering all these hidden lore in the game through the use of manuscripts and pages. That's when I sort of came across this references to Twin Peaks and all, and I had obviously heard about it back then, like about this TV show, but I never bothered to check it out, and that's when I ended up checking it out, and I sort of really liked how the show, I mean, as such, was created. I'm not a big fan, as Anirban said, was of the ending. I mean, I think the first season was really strong, but the second season sort of petered away. But yeah, I mean, to each his own. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm thinking I'll definitely give this a look, but maybe by the third episode I'll decide if I want to continue or not.
Abhishek, I think you share my distaste for David Lynch as well.
Yeah, I don't understand David Lynch. I know it's going to make me, if people on the internet are going to will be listening to this, they'll be like, you want a poser, dude, but then again, I don't get David Lynch. I don't like his style of filmmaking, because for me, I would rather take a filmmaker who gets his thoughts across to the intended audience that is making the film or the TV show for, and whose ideas are not so esoteric as David Lynch's are, and not so steeped in surrealism that half of his audience doesn't even understand what the fuck he's trying to do. I just don't get what he's trying to do. I don't understand that, and rather I would not want to, because for me, watching a TV show or a movie is for most of my why I do this is so that I can get a break from my reality, which is so banal and boring. So I would not want to bloody think go out of my way to discover what he's trying to say when he himself is not very willing to explain to his audience like what he exactly wants the audience to feel at a particular scene. I don't really understand that. I don't get that. I don't know why you would do that to yourself or to your audience. I'm sure there's a pretty big audience for that. There's a huge fan base that David Lynch has. Just I'm not one of them. I don't get it. I don't think I would be watching the show as well. I don't give a shit about the original show as well. I don't care about this one.
So this year is big for Marvel TV. We have 5 shows coming up. 3 of them from the Netflix verse, and one of them will be on ABC, and the other one is on Fox. I think all of us would say that Marvel has their game set and done in the Netflix verse. They exactly know what to do. But also all of us have our favorites, and most of us favor one on top of the other. Personally, I did not like Luke Cage much. I thought it was overproduced, and I don't know why, but somehow this show was said to be the best among the batch. I think Daredevil season 2 holds that spot, and for me personally, Luke Cage would be at the absolute bottom. I know Abhishek disagrees with me. He hates season 2 for some god-awful reason. And Abhishek, tell me why I'm wrong.
Yes, as always in every podcast, I'll prove that you're wrong and your opinions are wrong. So I'll tell you why I hate Daredevil season 2. Because that show ended at episode 6. After that, it was just overall bullshit. I mean, Karen Page, she fucking relates to every character. What is she? She shares this superpower, I guess. Wherever if she touches someone, she empathizes with that person. What the fuck is that? I don't understand that. I don't get that. The character motivations are going nowhere. Daredevil somehow becomes a completely emo character who in season 1 it was established that he will stand up for what he believes in, and his belief system is so strong. And then he meets Elektra, and his belief system goes for shit. I don't understand that, man. Season 1 was awesome, Daredevil. It's still my favorite Marvel show. I love the first season of Daredevil, and I love the Punisher because Punisher is one of my favorite superheroes of all time. So these two were my gripes with Daredevil season 2. I personally liked Luke Cage. I didn't think it was the best Marvel show. It's good because it's easy to digest. There's not much going on. Very self-contained. I love the music on that show. That is, it's amazing. I don't really think they can go anywhere with Luke Cage season 2 because his story is done. He's not, I don't see where the story would go. I'm really interested in, and Jessica Jones I really don't care about. I'm really interested to watch Iron Fist because that is one show I'm really excited for. More than Daredevil season 3, I'm excited for Iron Fist.
So Abhishek, this year we have Iron Fist coming out in March, Defender sometime in summer, and Punisher later in the year. The date hasn't been announced. So which are you most excited for?
I'm really excited for Iron Fist. So I love Iron Fist and characters like Stephen Strange and all of these characters who are a little steeped in the magic bit of the Marvel Universe because their storylines over the past 5 or 6 years have been really, really interesting. I'm not really familiar with the 70s version of Iron Fist, the one which is supposed to be the best, but the recent runs have been quite interesting, and that is something I would really want to watch translated onto the big screen.
Yeah, man, the Netflix superheroes, I think there's just too much angst. Why is there so much angst? I don't get it. Daredevil, too much angst. Jessica Jones, alcoholic angst. Luke Cage, I don't know what he's pissed off about. But it just, I am not one of those people who is really in love with the Netflix superheroes. I'm not. I think I'll rather watch Legion. I think that's the one with X-Men heroes that are not really explored in the extended cinematic universe. So maybe that's the one I'll be excited about. And not Luke Cage. I'm done with so much angst of this Marvel TV shows. I don't get it. That's why I'm off the DC cinematic universe, because there's just too much angst. We're not teenagers anymore, man. Just doesn't work sometimes for me.
I'll counter that.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, my thing is, if you're familiar with the comic books, Daredevil is someone who's always been a little angsty. He is someone who's struggling with faith. You can't expect someone who beats people up at night to be all happy about it, and he's someone who's Catholic, so his entire belief system is based on exactly opposite to what he is. So you always have that struggle of faith, and that is something which Daredevil portrays really well.
Yeah, I'm okay with angst per se. I'm not okay with angst just for the sake of a show being a little bit gritty and all. I don't like that. I mean, if you're just pushing a show just for the characters without any other development to their characters rather than them being angsty, then no, it just doesn't work for me.
That's all right, but then again, I think I would agree with you with your point of view when it comes to Jessica Jones. I don't really like that show because for your exact reasons what you said. Yeah, I get that she's been screwed up by the Purple Man and she has this dark past and all of that, but it got a little too much. I completely agree on that part. But then again, when it comes to Daredevil and till at least the mid of season 1, I think Daredevil was untouchable. It was incredible to watch.
Since you brought up Legion, it's interesting to know that it will be coming out next month as well. It's created by Noah Hawley, the same guy who brought us the Fargo remake, which is one of the best TV shows that I think we all universally agree that it's incredible. It will star Dan Stevens as David Haller. And if you know David Haller from the comics, he's Legion. He's the son of Professor Charles Xavier. I think we can expect a version of Professor X to show up sometime during the show. And if the trailer was an indication, I think it's one of the most interesting shows, not only a superhero show, that we can expect this. Mrigank?
I think this show, has a very interesting premise, to be honest. The reason being, Legion, when I first heard of it, I don't really know why, or relatively like around a year and a half back, there was a similar sounding TV show on air, which pretty much had like angels dropping down on Earth and, becoming like sort of superheroes. And was that called Legion itself?
Yes, it was. It was called Legion as well.
Yes. So the funny thing is, so when I heard that there's going to be a new Legend TV show and all, I was like, I thought like, this show is already over. Like nobody picked it up for a second season or something. And then, I keep hearing about this X-Men TV show, and I'm like, what's it supposed to be called? And then I look it up, and apparently that's what Legion is. So, coming back to points, the show does seem very interesting. As we all know, like right now, the superhero shows which sort of, hold on to the lore while, making up their own stories is all the rage, and I'll definitely like to give this a look.
I'm really excited for Legion because this is the first time I think we will be watching an Omega level mutant. Now, for people who don't know what an Omega level mutant is, he's basically God. He has like every power imaginable, and even if he doesn't have all the powers imaginable, the powers which he has are like God level. and most of the time Omega level mutants are not even aware of their own powers. So they can go like berserk. Like one of the most popular Omega level mutants that we know of is Jean Grey, and Jean Grey herself is not aware of the capacity that she has. It's untapped. So this is something which I think if anyone can bring it on screen, it's Noah Hawley, and I'm really excited for Legion as well. And Legion has this interesting thing. The lead who's cast opposite to Dan Stevens' character is called Sid Barrett.
What?
Oh.
Or Sid, yeah, she's called Sid Barrett, which is obviously a nod to this guy who used to sing in this little band called Pink Floyd.
Humans have been taken off from their movie slate, and it has been relegated to a TV one. So what are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are that I'm a little disappointed because I will not get to watch Black Bolt on TV. Black Bolt is, I got into Inhumans just like a couple of years back, and Black Bolt is definitely one of my favorite Marvel hero. He can move mountains, so as to say, with his voice. That's his basic power, and he's the king of the Inhumans. And I would have really loved Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to be cast as Black Bolt in the Inhumans movie, but I'm not really sure how it will be translated into the TV screen because of obviously the budgetary constraints. And I'm really excited to see. I really hope that we get Lockjaw, because Lockjaw is insane. So yeah, I'm excited for this show, and let's just see where it goes.
Interestingly, it's going to be released on IMAX, the first 2 episodes at least. So Anir, will you be going to watch Humans on IMAX if it comes down?
Not really, no. And my reasons are completely different. Because I'm sort of fed up of that whole scene, and nothing seems to deliver. And even Inhumans is something like Marvel is, I know, doing the whole shebang about introducing all the characters side characters that it has in its repertoire. But I'm not really excited by it.
So next up we have Veep, which is returning for its 6th season. If you've been following Veep, the last season ended with Selena Meyer ending her presidency and handing it off to the new president, and she lost horribly. And I thought that it had ended, and that was like the perfect farewell. So I'm not sure why the 6th is being made, and I'm pretty sure they had announced that it was last season as well. Obviously, the writers are really good for this show. It's one of the better comedy shows around.
It's not a bad show, I will agree. And the problem with Veep is that it's got Julian Louis-Dreyfus. I know people are big Seinfeld fans, but this one of those shows I can't explain it. Okay, I just don't like that show. And so any character from that series, when they come up with their own TV series or whatever, it's just something that makes it hard for me to follow. I know Mrigank will understand this. I have very strong taste when it comes to actors, and that sort of inhibits me from watching certain TV shows sometimes. And Veep is one of those shows. It's well written, it's funny. It's just I don't know. Just because of Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I just can't bring myself to watch it.
So now we come to the big show, and I think it's one show that everyone is waiting eagerly for. We have no idea what's going to come because Winds of Winter has not been released, and finally the assholes who have read the book won't get to gloat. So Abhishek, your expectations from Game of Thrones?
See, Game of Thrones is very strange, okay? The entire year I will not be excited for Game of Thrones, but once the first episode drops and I see the theme song, is that when my excitement reaches fever pitch. And after I finish the show, after the 10th episode generally, and this episode obviously will have 7 episodes, after 7th episode I'll be obsessed with Game of Thrones for at least a week. So that's my scene with Game of Thrones. I am a huge fan of the show. I love where the show is going at this present moment, and there are like numerous theories which obviously I will come up with and I'll read on the internet as the series goes on, and we'll have a more detailed discussion on this podcast as it goes on. And we, like you mentioned, we know nothing about this show at this point of time. We really don't know where the story is going. Probably I have this theory about Daenerys killing off Jon Snow and all of that, but if you want I can go into details of it. But yeah, I'm very excited for this show.
Because when you say we know nothing about this show, sorry bro, but the script has been leaked for all 7 episodes.
Script leaks?
Yeah, but then again, you have to be a special kind of an idiot to go on and read the script. No, why would you want to spoil it for yourself?
I haven't done so. I'm just saying it's out there, man.
Yeah, I know, man. But then again, I am talking to the smart people out there, the people who care and who have not read the script. Wait for the show.
Let it be like a PSA, right? A public service announcement. Please don't go and read it out there. I know it's out there,
To be
but
honest,
please don't go and read
scripts are boring anyways. When you try to do a script and read a script, I mean, everything sounds so boring. Like, I mean, I tried doing that once when I think it was Interstellar. I was trying to go through that script and I was like, okay, shit, I'm not reading it.
Who do you think is the chosen one, though? Who do you think is Azog Azar?
I don't know.
Do you think
man,
it's Daenerys, or do you think it's Jon Snow?
So I feel,
I think it's Jon Snow, man.
it has to be Jon Snow, but then again, I mean, the thing about the show and the reason why we all love it, and this is one show which sort of brings us all, proto hipsters and the general crowd together, because everybody fucking loves the show now. I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how some shows get really popular and the people who usually used to watch it originally start hating on it? This doesn't happen with Game of Thrones. Every fucking person loves this show. That's pretty much got to do with
it. Also is because I think it's it also has to do because shows like Game of Thrones, because they're so consistently brilliant. It's the same thing happened with Breaking Bad as well. It gives people a sense of community. You go in front of the water cooler and you buy kal raat ka Game of Thrones episode dekha kya? So you have the sense of community because these are your kind of people, because they watch the same show, and you when you go for smoke breaks, you go on for lunch breaks, you're walking back home or you're traveling, you get another Game of Thrones person wearing a Vala Morghulis t-shirt. You just know, right, that this guy follows the same shit which I do, and that gives you a sense of community, which is amazing. And I think that is what brings people together. Even if you hate the show, I mean, you won't come out and say it outright, boss, I hate the show. Everyone will say, what a chutiya, man, just because everyone likes, you don't like. So yeah. So I think that is something very special, and that is something which rarely happens, and that is what confirms that this is the golden age of television. Over the past 5 years or so, we've had shows like Breaking Bad, we've had shows like Fargo, and now we have an ongoing show which will end next year, but we still have it, and that's Game of Thrones. And these are shows which are bringing people together, gives you a sense of community, and it also gives us, and it also always lives up to the quality that it always set in.
And coming back to your point about Azor Ahai, I think it is John's. There's always 3 acts to the story, right? The first act establishes the character, the second puts them the characters at impossible odds, and the third has to tie in with all the loose threads, and it has to bring the story to a close. So I think the logical conclusion will be like they started off with the finale for the last season, and they showed that whatever had happened in the Tower of Joy, they basically confirmed that it was Jon Snow. And I don't think in 2 seasons they will have major twists, because if there is a twist, like in the Prestige, there has to be a Prestige in which they have to bring it back. I don't think they have time. And they are wrapping it up pretty quickly. There are only 13 or 14 episodes, I guess, which are left.
13 episodes left.
Right. So I don't think they'll get that one.
I think what you're talking about is the hero's journey, the concept of the hero's journey. We had it with Luke, we had it with Harry Potter, we had it. But the interesting thing in Game of Thrones is there are 2 people who are on a similar journey. That's both Daenerys and Jon Snow. They're both on this hero's quest, where they start off very naive, then they meet someone. In case of Daenerys, it's Mr. Friendzone, who teaches them the rules of the rope, and then she meets the dragons. Then she has to go through a test of taming those dragons, and then she has the dragons taken away. Then she goes to this place, and then she loses her shit. All of that stuff is happening, and that is a part of the hero's journey, the same journey which Jon Snow is on. So that is what makes it more fascinating, because we till this time, till 13 episodes left, and we don't really know where the show is going. That is what is fascinating about Game of Thrones, and despite it being so massively popular that it has not watered down, which is something which we have to give props to Weiss and Benioff. This is insane amount of detail which they've put in, and this insane amount of quality that they've come out with.
I mean, I'm just waiting for the show to really end on a high note, especially when it's on such a large scale, and you pretty much know what can happen, in the sense they can be maybe just 3 or 4 alternatives, and each of them have their own juicy proposition, at the end of the day. I mean, and that's the beauty of the show itself. I mean, it's I think more about the journey than the ending for me. So I'm pretty sure, how even if the ending is really bad, I'll never look down on that show like I look down on Dexter now. But I mean, yeah.
You shall not go.
Don't fucking mention Dexter, man.
This guy was such a big Dexter fan, man. He went to Australia and he used to tell me to watch it, okay? And I watched it, and then this, by the end of it, who becomes a lumberjack, man? Who becomes a lumberjack? Come on.
Brock Lesnar becomes a lumberjack.
I think they should have ended it in, made season 2. Season 3 was utter shit. Season 4 was magical again. The one with John.
Yeah, it always went through ups and downs. The season with the Trinity Killer was one of the best things on TV that year. I think it was as good as Breaking Bad. The one with John Lithgow. I think season 4. That was awesome. Where his stupid wife dies. That was awesome because I hated that character. Fuck that character. Yeah.
Did anybody notice Rita got a boob job between season 2 and season 3?
No, dude, only you noticed that. Now that you mention it.
Oh no, because they made a point to focus on it so much. Yeah, I still remember that.
Dude, I felt wrong just even looking at her in that way because she was like a rape victim and all of that. So I was like, fuck this.
I mean, Rita's. I always sort of she looks like one of those moms from the Hindi movies, for some reason. I don't know.
उसके चेहरे पे struggler लिखा हुआ है types. She's like the Hollywood female version of Shiny Ahuja, man. चेहरे पे लिखा है पूरा उसका बस लगा पड़ा है. She was blind in Supernatural or some shit. Okay, she was like a rape victim. In some other shows, she got fucked over by some other guy. Like I don't know what's going on with this. उसके चेहरे पे लिखा हुआ है.
As last year, everyone expected Westworld to be like Abhishek said, bring the community together, and everyone would be a massive fan of. But I think Stranger Things took that spot. But I think among us who are fans of movies, when we saw the trailer, we were blown away by all the 80s references. But I don't think anyone expected it to be this big of a hit. And even
I can't wait, to be honest. Like, this show was everything I wanted it to be. I mean, when I saw the trailer, and you know how trailers are always more or less sometimes deceiving. Again, this show, it had these brilliant characters, amazing setting, which makes you just go back to your childhood days. And I'm sure, none of us were brought up in the US or something, but somehow or the other, you can relate to the stuff, that early, the goofy 80s, late 80s, early 90s period stuff, which is just amazing in its own right. And, from the soundtrack, which is still, to be honest, on my list, I always maybe in 2 weeks I'll listen to it once. When I'm not doing really anything, it's like one of those musics you play in the background when you want to focus. I think the soundtrack does a great job at that. So I can't wait for the season 2, to be honest. I'm sure it's gonna be awesome. Even if it's not awesome, I'm gonna love the hell out of it because I don't care. It just has such a lovable feeling to it, to be honest. So yeah.
Okay, I think in the 80s, kids had that real sense of danger. In the movies and in the TV shows, I think that was missing, and Stranger Things brought it out perfectly. I think last we saw things like that was in Goonies, and that aspect of the real sense of danger was portrayed very well over here. And they actually killed a bunch of kids, so that was...
I think bar is pretty high up there when it comes to TV series that actually captured everybody's imagination in 2016. Westworld is up there, but I think Stranger Things did it better in a lot of ways. The one thing that you actually could relate to it, not because you're born in the 80s, like most of us, not all of us are, but the fact is, when we watched movies back in the 80s that were made for kids, you had this sense of that you're watching something that you're part of, and then you're really involved in those movies, right? Even Home Alone, take Home Alone for an example, right? You actually love that movie because you could relate to it at that time. Maybe not right now. If you watched it fresh for the first time now, you would not, but at that time you did. Now, when I was watching Stranger Things, that's exactly what happened. I was connecting to those characters. I fell in love with all those characters. And it is an adventure movie at the end. Okay, it's a fantasy adventure, but it's an adventure that those kids are having. And the one that you're living along with them, that's what made the show so great. That's why it's something that I'll really look forward to.
I would kind of disagree with what Mrigank said, that we don't really know what happened, what kids in the 80s went through, because I honestly feel that kids are kids. kids are the same way throughout. Yeah, probably they have access to better technology and better, toys or whatever. But I think all of us, in fact, at least I and Arindam, I mean, we grew up together with the same kind of people that are portrayed in Stranger Things or in any 80s movie. Like, we always had the dumb guy, we always had the very strong guy, we always had someone who was intelligent, who was conscientious, and you always had the goof. So I think kids are the same everywhere, and I love Stranger Things. I prefer it to Westworld or any other show from last year, was because I have such a deep love for Steven Spielberg and his style of filmmaking. Stranger Things taps into that. The entire strain of the Spielberg school of filmmaking. The Duffer brothers have actually come out and said that they tried to capture everything that Steven Spielberg has done and have done it beautifully. And I think the next season, from what I've read online, I'm trying not to read much about the show, is they're trying to capture another 80s and 90s filmmaker, that is James Cameron. They're trying to capture what James Cameron has done. That would mean, if the rumors are actually true, that would mean a lot of technology, a lot of sci-fi elements coming into it. It'll be more gritty than the magic realism that the season 1 had. And if it is captured, and if they can strike a balance between the magic of Spielberg schools of filmmaking and the technology and of James Cameron's vision, I think this will blow every show out of the water this year. And obviously, they are not bound by budget. They don't have to cater to the network. It's on Netflix. So I think that plays a major part on where the show's quality lies.
So it comes out in July 2017. I think all of us will be binging it on that weekend itself. So next, FX, which has awesome shows coming up this year, has a show called Snowfall. It is set in the early 1980s LA. And if you know anything about the 1980s and early 90s LA, it was rife with crime. It focuses on the first cocaine epidemic and its impact on the culture, on the city. The only reason I'm interested in this show is because it's by director John Singleton. If you are a fan of John Singleton, that means you're a fan of movies like Boys in the Hood, Poetic Justice, and Higher Learning. It's sad that he also made Too Fast and Furious, but we'll not talk about that. John Singleton also returned recently. He directed an episode of American Crime Story, People vs. OJ, which was one of the best episodes from the entire season, which itself was a superlative season. So if you haven't watched that show, you're going to love it.
I'm a huge fan of John Singleton. Okay, I'll come out and say this. I think he is better than Spike Lee. You know why? Because Spike Lee tries to go all esoteric on that racist shit. He tries to give you a perspective as to what this is like, what it is like for a black man growing up in the 90s America and LA and all of that. But what John Singleton does is he just puts it out there. You decide for yourself. This is what is happening, and this is the white perspective of it all. You be the judge as to who is right and who is wrong, and we will not comment on this. This is just a documentary type. So that is what I love about John Singleton. If you have not watched, I implore you to watch movies like Boys in the Hood, which is one of my favorite films, and it has this amazing song by Ice Cube as well. That was Ice Cube, one of his earlier roles. He was there, and I also loved Ice Cube and Higher Learning as well. Higher Learning is also an amazing film, which stars Lawrence Fishburne too, and it also took on the LGBT issue as well, way back when, and it did not go all heavy-handed like most directors directing about racial issues do. John Singleton puts a very layman's perspective into these very, very controversial topics, for the lack of a better word, and that is why he is one of the most underrated 90s directors. I'm really excited for this show, and I really implore that people who haven't watched any of his films should go and check out his earlier stuff. They are really, really good watches.
Next we have another show which will be quite similar. It's called Dear White People. It's an adaptation of a movie by the same name. It's coming out on Netflix. There will be 10 30-minute episodes. It's a satirical comedy drama. It was one of the better movies based on race relations that I saw this previous year. It's written, directed by the same person who made the movie as well, Justin Simien. Did you guys watch Dear White People?
Yeah, I watched it. I didn't like it. I thought it was like fucking garbage, man. I thought it was like one of these movies which these Wyan brothers make. They're trying to be all funny and shit, but it just comes across as extremely awkward. None of the jokes stick. I don't know, probably I was in a bad mood when I watched that movie, but that movie sucks. Fuck that movie, dude. And fuck that show as well. I don't think, fuck that show, man. And I don't care.
Tell you what, okay, the thing is, okay, they're talking about racism from a very narrow perspective, right? And it's something that
They make
Arindam,
it like so
you,
stupid.
Abhishek, you, Arindam, you, and me, because we have stayed in Shillong, we understand what racism is. Okay, we do.
Yeah.
And so we will not ever relate to that show. Okay, because they're talking from a very small periscope that they look through, and they're looking at it like they are the ones who are being discriminated against. The truth is, no, you're not, bro. You're not. Maybe you are a little bit, but not as much as we understand. I mean, what I'm saying is that we understand racism, and that's not it.
Yeah, and I think it's a very first world perspective of what they show. Probably I'm missing the entire subtext here. From above, if you see this is a very, like you said, a very narrow perspective. Like I said, none of these jokes stick, and probably it was done on a very small budget, and that's why it comes across as this way. I had the same problem with not a similar show, a Wet Hot American Summer. I had the same problem with that. That show was that movie was good for its time, but that show doesn't work in today's day and age. I'm not really sure if DIY people also would be the same way. I'm waiting to be surprised, but honestly, I don't really like the film at all.
April FX has Fargo coming up with its third season. Interestingly, the time frame is based in the year 2010, and Ewan McGregor is playing a dual role. It will also have Mary Elizabeth Winstead and David Thewlis, who as Remus Lupin from the Pokémon. So Anir, are you excited for it?
Yes, I'm very excited for Fargo. I mean, this was one of the shows that took me off guard, caught me off guard. I'm a big fan of the Coen brothers, and I was not expecting anybody to do justice to Fargo, the movie itself, and and it did. Pleasant surprise, man. That show was amazing. I hate Martin Freeman. If you talk to Mrigank, you'll know that I hate Martin Freeman. I feel like he has a sinus problem that he should get checked. He always talks. Speaks like he has this problem with his breathing, and I was. But that a very interesting way to solve it. Well, break it in the show itself. But that show itself, it's so amazing. It's just the characters so amazing. It just was a brilliant show. And the second season itself, I felt like it went a little bit downhill, but it still was a better show than True Detective was in its second season. Because if you remember, Fargo and True Detective, they got released at the same time. The third season, the cast, again, it's got a very awesome cast. I like Ewan McGregor, and I think this is one season that might be a break or make season for them. I hope that it doesn't disappoint.
I love the show, and I love the way the characters are built. Everyone has these ticks, for the lack of a better word, and no one out there is black or white. Everyone has a shade of grey, and everyone has an agenda. It's something which I really love. The first season was exemplary, amazing writing, very, very concise, very, it was just awesome to watch. And the second season, well, it may take you out because of some elements which I will not get into in this podcast. In case you haven't watched, you should do yourself a favor and watch it. And they've always been known to have this amazing cast. First season had Billy Bob Thornton, Martin Freeman, Alison Goldman, Colin Hanks. The second season had Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, Kieran Culkin, Patrick Wilson, Ted Danson, and the third season also lives up to that. And like you mentioned, it has Ewan McGregor, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Scoot McNairy making an appearance as well. So there's something I'm really looking forward to.
Both the seasons, even season 1 and season 2. Season 2, although it took a dip in its form compared to season 1, but I think what season 1 achieved was pretty amazing. If you look at the TV series, it's like there's a lot of quirks in those characters which have been exposed, which I really love.
Yeah, but I just have another point to make about the length of these shows. As you see, most of these shows, they don't know when to stop. Like but not saying anything about the quality, because the quality of both shows cannot be compared. But look at a show like Supernatural. Now it has been renewed for a 13th season. That show, I used to be a huge fan of Supernatural, and I think that they should have ended up to 5, because the quality took a severe hit after that. So
Yeah,
I think I really think that if these shows don't overstay their welcome, it's good. It's something that Hollywood should learn. I mean, British shows don't go on like most of these shows which are like this, not sitcoms, don't extend more than 4 to 5 seasons, and which is a good thing, you know. And they don't have very many episodes as well. They max to max they have like 8 to 10 episodes, which I think is good. This is something which Sherlock is also done. Sherlock is known to make 3 movies more or less, and yeah. So I think this is something which has to do with the lack of quality as well. So I hope the quality does not dip for Fargo, and if they are deciding to end it at season 3, I hope that the show ends on a high.
So this was part 1 of our top 2017 TV show discussion. Join us again on our next podcast where we'll continue this discussion on more shows that we are looking forward to this year. If you enjoyed listening to us, check out our other podcasts, follow Indian Nerve on Facebook, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.